The summer of 1940 was one of the most decisive moments in world history. Europe was already on fire, France had fallen, Britain stood defiant, and Hitler's armies prepared for dominance. Yet far from the battlefields of France or the skies of Britain, another front was about to explode. The Mediterranean, this sea, cradle of civilizations and empires, would now become a theater of modern war, where battleships, submarines, and air power clashed for supremacy. The Mediterranean War of 1940 was more than a campaign. It was a struggle for control of routes, colonies, and the fate of nations. The Mediterranean had long been the crossroads of empire. Rome once called it Mare Nostrum, our sea. Centuries later, the Ottoman fleet ruled its waters. Then Britain rose to dominate with her mighty navy. By the dawn of the Second World War, the Mediterranean was again strategic. Whoever controlled it could control supply lines, reach Africa, and influence the Middle East. For Britain, it was the lifeline to India and the Suez Canal. For Mussolini's Italy, it was a chance to revive the glory of Rome, to carve out a new Roman Empire. In June 1940, when Italy entered the war on the side of Nazi Germany, the Mediterranean balance shifted overnight. The atmosphere in Rome was electric with ambition. Mussolini declared, "We need only a few thousand dead to sit at the peace conference." His armies stood poised in Libya, threatening Egypt, while his navy, the Regia Marino, was one of the largest in the world, boasting battleships, cruisers, and submarines. Yet behind the grandeur lay weaknesses, poor coordination, outdated tactics, and fuel shortages. Still, to the Italians, this was their chance to prove themselves alongside Hitler's Reich. The Mediterranean, once dominated by British bases in Gibraltar, Malta, and Alexandria, was now contested in London. The British Admiralty faced grim realities. France, their ally, had fallen. Italy now posed a direct threat. The British Mediterranean fleet, under Admiral Andrew Cunningham, was smaller than the Italian navy. But what it lacked in numbers, it made up for in discipline, training, and innovation. The Royal Navy would fight not just to hold the sea, but to defend Malta, protect convoys, and prevent Axis domination. Malta, a small island fortress south of Sicily, became the most bombed place on Earth, a dagger in the heart of Axis supply lines. Winston Churchill himself called it an unsinkable aircraft carrier. Tension rose rapidly through the summer. Italian bombers attacked Malta. British submarines prowled the waters. Merchant ships carrying vital supplies tried to reach North Africa, only to be hunted down. In July 1940, the first great clash came, the Battle of Calabria, known also as Punta Stilo. Off the coast of southern Italy, the Royal Navy and the Italian fleet met in open combat. The thunder of naval guns echoed across the sea. The battle was indecisive. Neither side lost a capital ship, but it proved the Mediterranean would be no passive front. This was a theater of war in its own right. The struggle intensified as both sides sought dominance. Italian bombers raided Alexandria, British bases launched counterattacks, and the sea lanes became deadly. In November 1940 came the turning point, the daring British raid on Taranto. In the dead of night, a small group of swordfish, biplanes, slow, outdated, open-cockpit aircraft took off from the carrier HMS Illustrious. Flying low over the sea, they launched a surprise attack on the Italian fleet anchored in Taranto harbor. Torpedoes struck with precision. By dawn, 3 Italian battleships were sunk or crippled. It was a stunning blow. The world took notice, including Japan, which studied Taranto closely before planning its own strike at Pearl Harbor the following year. The Taranto raid shattered Italian naval confidence and gave Britain breathing space. Yet the Mediterranean War was far from over. The Desert Campaign in North Africa was directly tied to the sea. Italian armies had advanced into Egypt but soon met stiff British resistance. Supplies, reinforcements, and weapons had to cross the Mediterranean. Every convoy mattered. British submarines, like HMS Upholder and Parthian, stalked Axis ships, sinking thousands of tons of supplies. Malta's airfields became crucial in striking Axis convoys. The Axis, in turn, unleashed massive air raids on Malta, trying to bomb it into submission. Civilians lived in caves and shelters, enduring starvation and ceaseless bombing. Their resilience became legendary. As 1940 closed, the Mediterranean had become a crucible of modern war. Naval battles, submarine warfare, carrier strikes, and air campaigns intertwined. The outcome here would determine not just the survival of Malta or the fate of Egypt, but the entire balance of the war in the Middle East and North Africa. For Italy, the year ended in disappointment. Their navy had been humiliated at Taranto, their armies stalled in Egypt, and their grand dreams of empire tarnished. Mussolini's boast of easy victories had turned to bitter struggle. For Britain, though battered and outnumbered, the Mediterranean fleet had proven its mettle. They had struck first, struck hard, and kept the lifeline open. The legacy of the Mediterranean War in 1940 was profound. It marked the beginning of a years-long contest that would draw in German forces, Rommel's Afrika Korps, and eventually the Americans. But 1940 was the year when the Mediterranean balance shifted from Italian promise to British resilience. It was a reminder that technology and daring could overcome numbers, that an island fortress like Malta could resist the might of empires, and that the Mediterranean, cradle of history, remained a sea where the fate of nations was decided. Today, the Mediterranean War of 1940 is remembered not only for its naval battles and daring raids, but for the courage of those who endured its sailors braving torpedoes. Civilians in Malta surviving the Blitz, pilots flying obsolete biplanes against modern battleships. Their struggle reminds us that even in the darkest hours of the Second World War, determination and ingenuity could defy the odds. The sea that had seen the galleys of Rome and the fleets of Byzantium now bore witness to a new chapter of history, one written in fire, steel, and sacrifice. This episode has been created with deep research, care, and a commitment to bringing history to life. If you believe in supporting high-quality historical storytelling, your encouragement helps us continue this journey into the past.